Hello, everybody, and welcome into episode 4 of the West Coast T-Check. I'm the Deits. I will be the host today, as Nick Rice is not going to be with us for this episode. Alongside me, the big skinny, we have our new guy, Dr. J, a.k.a. Jason Gehrlein, and our special guest today. He is KTVN 2 News sports reporter and weekend anchor in Reno, Nevada, Andrew Nepsund. Andrew, great to have you along. I know we're coworkers, so I know, we don't see each other as often, actually. So this is kind of funny. We see each other in a Zoom call. How you been, and how's the sports life been in Reno, Nevada?
I've been good, well, when we say the word good, in the last, was it been 10, 11 months, it has a certain different connotation than it has before in the past. But, that's all you can do. You just keep on going. Working right now, there's been no complaints because, we have content, as you know. A lot better than it was, say, a couple months back when it was just Reno 1868. And if they had a game camp or something like that, it was literally a barren landscape and there was absolutely nothing. So a full slate coming up, spring stuff coming up, fall stuff that got pushed back this spring is happening right now. And baseball is going to be playing soon. Softball opens up this weekend. So it's looking like it has been before in the past with spring, except for, of course, high school sports. We're still waiting on that.
Yeah, exciting to get softball back. And, Nevada basketball is actually doing pretty solid as they swept Boise State, which was unbelievable. But I'm going to pass off the questions. We're going to go the big skinny and then Dr. J, and then I'll go back to myself. So big skinny, let's get it started. Let's get it rolling.
So my first question is going to be, let's go back a little bit of your background within sports journalism, Mr. Nepson. You started in Texas. You went to Texas Tech. I was just curious, from your time in Texas, was the most valuable thing that you learned at your stations, at your outlets there, that has really proven to be beneficial for you here at KTVN?
I honestly think that first and foremost, doing it in Texas, you learn real quick how much everyone loves football, and especially high school football, and then maybe even more so than that, UT football. The people and fans surrounding Texas, the Longhorns, wow. There's some nutsos out there as to why you see, Tom Herman last for a couple of years, and all of a sudden he's doing okay. They have a great bowl record. They beat Georgia. They beat all these great teams in bowl games, but nope, because these big time boosters you know what? Nah, we don't like this anymore. So the culture around UT is, ever since Mac Brown left, it's just trying to find the next Mac Brown. That's really tough to do. So just from that, it paints the picture how big football is. But even in, just like Texas, among many other states, what I learned down there and what's really helped me is that just getting as much experience as you can, as you mentioned, internships that I had down there and whatnot. I think the biggest, internships were great at TV stations. You got to see how it works and everything. You got to see professionals doing what they love in San Antonio, where I did one, and then in Lubbock as well. But I think what helped me the most is I was on a student newspaper at Texas Tech called the Daily Corridor, still running to this day. And that gave me just I wasn't even a rookie. I was a student, I didn't know what I was doing, but they let us go to games. They let us into press conferences. Sometimes if we were bold enough, we would ask questions and hope the coach or players didn't jump on us for asking a dumb question or something like that. But just going out and doing that, it gave you that experience that you needed. As soon as I got my first job, I was a couple of months ahead of anyone else. Like in San Angelo, my first one, people would struggle right off the bat because they had never done stuff like this before, but I'd already done it. I knew where to go. I knew what to do. I knew kind of what questions to ask. So just being given the opportunity to mess up immensely and just get your footing, it helped me that much more and gave me a running start, I guess, if you will, into what I'm doing today, and just trying to progress ever so slightly, as we all do in all our different careers, and hoping I don't make terrible mistakes.
All right.
That's good. Well, I just wanted to ask, so, graduating from college and going forward, how are you able to make that transition from the student life to work life?
That was probably the biggest wake-up call for me, learning it the hard way, because in college, it's no big deal if you're late to a class, this or that. My first month when I got my first legitimate on-air job, uh, I still had some bad habits. I was showing up to availabilities late, but in a small town like San Angelo, you can't get away with that because it's you and maybe like one other person that's going to be at the availability. So if you don't show up, sometimes no questions get asked, and everyone realizes, hey, where's this new Nepsund kid? Oh, look, he's late again. So that was the biggest pickup call right there. Like, okay, I can't be late anymore. So once I got that in my head, how the professional field is nothing like it is in college, then it started to click like, okay, I need to put the work in right here and now just to make sure, A, I can hold down a job and then just go from there. As soon as I started showing up on time, as that old cliche saying goes, showing up is half the battle, or whatever percentage figure you want to give to it. If you just show up consistently, that is one of the biggest things you can.
And I guess going on from your career, now you're in Reno, Nevada. It's a medium market. One of the bigger teams here is Reno 1868 FC. They disbanded. You see the Reno Aces. You got the University of Nevada, Reno. Has this been has this been your probably biggest market and the most talent you have seen out of anywhere you've been? And what talent have you seen? Like, what are the biggest players you have seen so far in your career here in Reno, Nevada?
Oh, I was spoiled right away. The thing I think of first was the Martin twins. Like, I came here and got hired the month before they started that super hyped up season that they had. Just watching the Martin twins fly around, Jordan Gehrlein throwing it down. I'm like, this quality of basketball is something else. Like, wow, these guys are like, they could be A or something like that. So that was just like the most eye-popping moment. And I have to say right then and there, I know it's not very sexy, of course, yeah, everyone knows the Martins, everyone knows Jordan Gehrlein, but they just hit me so hard with that first game I got to cover against BYU in that season opener that year. I was just literally blown away. And thinking back on it right now, God, it's just the noise of the crowd and just every game that year, as y'all know, like it was just sold out, loud. The atmosphere was just insane, and God mercy, do I miss it. Other than that, shoot, those guys from 1868 FC that you brought up, there were some really good footballers. Like there are some dudes on there that you could see making a very easy transition to being a contributor on an MLS team. Like for instance, just off the top of my head, Sam Gleedle, who I believe right now is with the Minnesota MLS team, I want to say. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. But you can see him making a really big time impact because even, I know it's not like I played a couple years of soccer growing up, but it was like from when I was like age 8 to age 12. None of us really, if I'm being honest, pay attention to defense in any sport, even though it's so important. We all want to see offense. That's the sexy stuff. But whenever I'd catch myself watching like Sam Gleedle, be the defender he was, like he would lock dudes down. I was like, oh my God, you cannot get past this guy. Him in soccer, Nevada basketball, and even with Alford here, like there's going to be some golden years coming up with who they have coming in. Will Baker, you go down the list, the dude from Oregon that's transferring or already is transferred in. They should have solid teams for the next couple of years, however long Steve Alford decides to be in Reno.
So sorry, Big Skinny. I got one follow-up question. I'll throw it back to you. You talk about the Martin Twins. You talk about Cody and Caleb. They didn't get sent down to the G League bubble. They ended up staying up with the Charlotte Hornets. How big of an impact is that for both of the Twins to be on the same team, go back to their hometown, and be able to stay up with the roster? I honestly thought that maybe Caleb or Cody would have been one of them would have been sent down. Get a little extra playing time. Just become a little bit better and get a couple more touches. But what have you seen from the Martin Twins that has differed from college to the NBA level?
Their work ethic has just not wavered. I think I remember seeing a tweet a while back from Eric Musselman saying these are two of the hardest competitors or most elite competitors I've ever coached in my life. It's just true. And I guess it just proves you cannot separate the twins whatsoever. It's just remarkable when you think about it. Yeah, same college, transferred to the same exact college again, and then you got them on the same exact NBA. That the chances of that happening are like that. So, I mean, they're just. I think they honestly realize the opportunity at hand, and they just have to put in that effort so much just to be on an NBA roster. It takes so much work because it's not the NFL. You don't have just an exorbitant amount of people and be like, okay, I could be number 4 or 5 on the depth chart. There's only a handful of dudes that are on a basketball team. So if you don't put in the work constantly, you're going to get booted out quick. And on top of that, I would say it's great that they still get to stay together, especially on the Hornets, because, yeah, you would get more seasoning and a lot more playing time in the G League, but you're still getting NBA minutes. And, you can have your bros out there, your teammates pushing you in practice and your off time. But when you have a twin brother with you that's doing that, who's always, on your butt, in your business, pushing you pushing, that's a fantastic type of relationship to have on an NBA team. Yeah, you got your bros, but you got your twin brother you grew up with pushing you and vice versa. So, you really hope they get to stay on Charlotte Hornets, both of them, for at least a couple more years. That would be really, really cool to see twins actually stick together. I know the Morris twins out of Kansas, when they graduated, they've been bouncing around like crazy, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, they got to spend like a year with each other on the Suns. You don't want to separate twins, man. It's something you'd love to see.
Well, to continue our talk in the NBA atmosphere, we again did my research on you, Mr. Nepson, and you're a Spurs fan. Team
Yes,
that's
sir.
right now.
Research.
They're in 6th place right now in the Western Conference. We just passed the quarter mark in the season. With what are your thoughts on where the team is at so far this season?
I'll start off with saying that as a Spurs fan, being so used to success, I admit I was spoiled by it and I took it for granted. It's really starting to hit hard now that, hey, Kawhi Leonard's not on the team anymore and the team's getting a little bit older. At least that is with their primo stars. Like LaMarcus Aldridge is in his mid-30s now. What I think of them this year, this is about where I thought they could be, in contention for not, a high, maybe first round bye during a playoff series, not one of those 1 through 4 spots, but they're a solid team that if dudes play their roles, they could still make the postseason. Yeah, sure, they're in the Western Conference, but if they take care of business, they could sneak in. Now, the question is, what's interesting about the Spurs is finally, on these message boards and fans from back home in San Antonio, where I grew up, is, they draft all these young guards. Like, when are they going to start finally handing the team over to them as opposed to, just dumping the ball into LaMarcus Aldridge or what have you, letting DeMar DeRozan go to work? It's finally happening this year. It started initially when they transitioned to the bubble and they lost LaMarcus to at that time, a season-ending injury. So they pretty much had to play small ball, and it really worked out well. They almost made it. I think if they would have won like a game or two differently here or there, they would have been in that play-in game to try and get that last spot to get probably swept by Lakers. But it would have extended their playoff streak. That's the biggest reason why I was upset by it. But when you hand that ball over, the offense now runs to the young guys and all those young dudes. They got Kelvin Johnson, they got Lonnie Walker, DeJounte Murray, then Derek White. Those 4 guys, they have a plethora of young talent at that guard / I guess, with Kelvin Johnson, the small forward position, but he's like 6'5", 6'6", 6'6", so he's essentially a guard type of dude. They are so much more faster. They're athletic. Lonnie Walker shooting like 40% from deep. So they're finally shooting the 3 ball more. And that's, I think, maybe the biggest reason as to why they're doing well or better right now, because they were a good 3-point shooting team 2 or 3 years ago, but they were last in the they were dead last in the NBA in amount of attempts they had, and they were barely squeaking by opponents. Now they've upped finally their 3-point shooting in terms of amount of attempts because it's happening everywhere. At first, I guess you could call it, if you want, the Golden State effect. I don't know the original origin of it, but you would have to argue it is Golden State in that 2014 team, I want to say, just jacked up 3 after 3 after 3. And now everyone thinks like, oh yeah, even though we don't have the greatest backcourt of all time with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, we can shoot a bunch of threes. And it seems like, no, that's not going to work, but it is. Like everyone's shooting. Like it used to make my eyes bug out of my head when I saw box scores where a team would put up 40 threes in a game. Like I would see the Rockets do that like all the time last year. Now this year, like it's happening again. The Utah Jazz, they're in some games, they're putting up 50 3-point attempts in 48 minutes. That's mind-boggling. It's so strange to see how the NBA has transitioned to just a 3-point shooting and layup-oriented type of league. And the Spurs, old head Greg Popovich, one of the greatest coaches of all time, maybe now he's finally starting to be like, okay, you know what? I give. We'll start shooting a couple more threes here and there. And it seems as if it's starting to pay off because you got to keep up with what everyone else really is doing in the league. Otherwise,
So
A rebuttal to what?
oh, you
Oh,
can
go right ahead, Jay.
Oh, okay.
So you go right ahead.
I was gonna say, so being a Spurs fan, how many more years do you think Pop's got?
That's a really good question, actually. There are so many different answers I've seen and heard. The man is not one for, trying to chase records and accolades. I mean, he guy's won like 5 titles. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. And yet, he's only, I think, about 30, 40, 50 wins away from becoming the most winningest coach in all of NBA history and passing up a dude he used to be an assistant coach for with, I think it was the Warriors, Don Nelson. People look at that and think, oh, he'll have one more year after that. He'll break it and then he'll retire. I wouldn't put it past him to maybe this year's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe he already has a coach in waiting in Becky Hammond. She's been there for a couple years. He just hands the keys over like, here you go, you're ready. It could be at the end of this year. Maybe he times it with when he's done with his time with Team USA. You could tie it in with that. But if I had to give a personal guess, I would say he's got 3 more years. And I think that would put him, don't have in front of me right now, at the age of, I want to say like 81. Let me go ahead and see right here. Greg Popovich. I spelled it wrong again after all these years. Oh, he's not as old as I thought he was. Whoops. I put him at 75. That's still pretty old for an NBA head coach. If you are age 80, sorry about that, you should not be coaching at the NBA unless you have the sharpest mind of all time. So, yeah, I would give it this and then maybe 3 years max, and then he heads on out because he's still, everything's there. He's still a really good coach. And that's not going to change, it seems like, anytime soon.
I agree.
Steven, you can ask your rebuttal question. I know you had one, so
No,
go for it.
it wasn't a question. It was more of a rebuttal just on the Spurs that going straight to your point about Greg Popovich, that old school philosophy where, when he had it was the days of Duncan, Ginobili, Tony Parker, and the ensemble group, they relied heavily on the fundamentals and also defense. Defense was, the key to winning games before the 3-point ball has really revolutionized this game. And now it's more of like you win the game whether or not you shoot the 3 ball well or you don't. It was the ride or die system that ultimately kind of failed the Houston Rockets in their window of success in the D'Antoni era. And I don't see Popovich doing that, But I agree, implementing a little bit more of a 3-point philosophy, because there are going to be times where you can't defend the 3-pointer, no matter how well you defend. 3-pointers are going to go in, and that's just an extra point compared to just a jump shot or a layup or just a couple free throw shots. That's the difference now in these games. They're very high scoring games, but games nonetheless.
True that. And you mentioned, like sometimes threes are just going to go in. How would you like to guard Stephen Curry, man? He made SVPs the best thing I saw today on back-to-back nights in both those games against the Spurs when he had that ridiculous three, I think it was from the logo. And then that I've never seen it before. I mean, tell me if y'all have, when he's going through the air, he's hanging in the air, he's trying to go in the corner. Oh, it's not there. Just flips it up. That's one of those wonkiest, craziest layups, personally, that I've ever seen. I don't even know how to explain that, man. He is enjoy him while he's on the court. That's all I can say about that.
So Nepsund, I got one last question before we gotta let you go here. But so I want to just talk about some Mountain West players here. Two guys that are on the same team in Toronto. We talk about the Mountain West Player of the Year, Malachi Flynn out of San Diego State. And we also talk about Mountain West Newcomer of the Year, or last season, Jalen Harris. Crazy enough to say Jalen Harris was in the talks of being Mountain West Player of the Year and possibly Newcomer of the Year, but Malachi Flynn did win that out. How do you feel about them being on the G League? This Raptors team, it's kind of weird. Kyle Lowry is getting to the mid-30s and Kawhi Leonard's gone. They got Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet as their two main guys. How do you see them developing in the G League and taking it to the NBA level?
I think they both, and I really do mean this. I don't want to say positive vibes. Oh yeah, they both have a great chance. They both really do to have a true impact on this team. What's cool about the Raptors too, they really value, I guess you could call them undersized guards. Look at Fred VanVleet, a dude that was undrafted, and he's I think he might be 6 foot. You'll have to check the numbers on that, but he's not a very tall guy when it comes to the NBA, and look what he's doing. So, and Malachi Flynn, he's 6'1". Jalen Harris is not some giant, running the point or at that off guard position, whatever is called upon him whenever his time does come with the Raptors. Watching both of them last year, I was super fortunate to be able to watch them just because they are both so talented at what they do, and they're just a little bit different in terms of they can both play defense first and foremost. Malachi Flynn's got some really quick hands. He got a ton of steals, even today during their game. Or maybe I'm thinking of Jalen Harris. I don't know. One of them had 4 steals. Just watching that game today, I missed every single one of Jalen Harris's buckets. I mistimed it terribly, but Malachi Flynn was looking really good. He is slippery. He can maneuver around literally anybody and distribute the ball. And what's even more impressive than that, he finishes around the rim too. When San Diego State was playing Nevada at Lawler in that second game, Nevada really should have won that game. They played insanely well. And yet because literally Malachi Flynn, what he did in the final 5 to 6 minutes, they came away with a road win. His 3-point shot, it's solid. And on top of that, it's not a Steph Curry type of super quick release, but he gets it out of his hand so quickly. Even if you're 6'1", that's fine. And that's what exactly he has to do. If you're going to be a little bit smaller of a guard, you got to get that ball out quickly or have an insane arc on your 3-pointer. Otherwise, you get that projected right into your face. He could, if I may be so bold, with, as you mentioned, Bob, Kyle Lowry getting up there in age, perhaps he could find his way into the starting lineup if they hold on to him and like him enough a couple years down the road. Jalen Harris, he seems like a type of guy that could develop into maybe that dude that comes off of that, like a 6th or a 7th man type of deal, like a Jamal Crawford, because he's, as you saw at Nevada, he's instant offense. He can get you a bucket whenever you need it, anywhere on the floor. Yeah, he's working on his 3-point shot, this, that, but he can get to the rack, he can get to any spot, his spot, put it up. is probably going in. And not to mention, he's clutch. That game last year against Colorado State, which another one they should have won, for not where I think like an Isaiah Stevens last second jumper that would have won that game too. So yeah, Jalen Harris, Malachi Flynn would be very surprised if they didn't make any sort of impact. Yeah, I think they're going to do something.
Well, that's all the time we got with you, Andrew. Thanks for coming on once
Thank you for
again. We hope to
coming.
have you on closer to the playoff run. Hopefully, San Antonio will be in the talks, staying within that 6th seed, maybe even go a little bit higher. Who knows? That is Andrew Nepsund from KTVN 2 News Reno. He is the sports reporter and weekend anchor in Reno, Nevada. And coming up next, Steven and I will be debating the all-time 5 OKC Supersonics, and Dr. J, aka Jason Gehrlein, is going to be our moderator for this one. So I'm kind of interested to see what he likes and see who's going to win that round. And then we go into hot and cold player segment. And if we have time, we go into NBA headlines. Andrew, thank you once again, and you have a great night.
Right back at y'all. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the West Coast Check podcast. Hope I'm saying that right. We got the Deits, we got the Big Skinny, and today we are talking about the team formerly known as the Seattle Supersonics. They changed their name. They moved somewhere else. They're new in town. Maybe new in town as of 11 years ago, but who knows? It's the Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and today we'll be going through their best 5 players to ever play for their franchise. Just a reminder, this is the accomplishments and in their time with the franchise. So just because Paul George and Carmelo Anthony did have stops in OKC does not make them really in this conversation. So since you won last week, we're gonna go to Steven. Who's your 5, man?
Let me tell you, Jason, I think I have a solid top 5 here.
Okay.
For the Seattle Oklahoma City franchise. We'll start with number 5. I'm gonna go with a guy that maybe some people don't really know this name. His name's Jack Sikma. He was drafted by Seattle. He was the 8th overall pick in the 1977 draft out of Illinois Wesleyan University. This guy's an NBA Hall of Famer. He all of the real success that he had in his career came when he was in Seattle. 7-time All-Star. He was an all-defensive member in the 81-82 season. He was an all-rookie player in 77-78, and he won the title. He's won the lone title in the Seattle OKC franchise history back in the 78-79 season. 9 seasons with the team when he averaged just a little under 17 points per game, over 10.5 rebounds at that center spot. The big boy, he's got to make our top 5. Again, not a lot of people are going to know the name, but the stats really show the bigger picture of why Jack Sikma is in my top 5. He's also, in terms of rebounds per game in the history of the franchise, he's number 2. Spencer Haywood, who's also a Hall of Famer, he's number 1 at 12. But Jack Sikma, number 5 on my list. Number 4, arguably one of the biggest wastes of talent in NBA history. If this guy put just a little bit more effort into his career, he could possibly be the number 1 player in this franchise's history. And Shawn Kemp. He played about 8 seasons with Seattle, averaged 16 points per game, about 9.5 rebounds per game. It was him and Gary Payton, the glove, that was the dynamic duo that faced MJ and the Chicago Bulls in the finals in the mid-90s. And again, I say that he's one of the biggest wastes of talent because he could have put up so many better numbers. I mean, he's a 6-time All-Star. He's a 3-time All-NBA. All but one of those accomplishments came when he was with Seattle. And we'll get to Gary Payton in a sec, but I mean, in the annals of history for this franchise, is always Shawn Kemp, Gary Payton. So I can never leave Shawn Kemp out of my top 5. And number 3, I call him the glorified stat pattern. It's Russell Westbrook, winning an MVP during his time in Oklahoma City. I mean, when I think back, it's funny to say that when we think back about the time of of Westbrook, of Durant, of Harden in Oklahoma City. I mean, that trio worked, but as Harden left, you thought, okay, like what's the next thing for Durant and Westbrook? Is success. Almost a trip to the NBA Finals with just those two as the core guys. Durant leaves, so now what's Westbrook going to do in his own role? And I think he did okay. But again, he's a glorified stat pattern. That's why he's at number 3 for me. But you can't overlook the stats, though. I mean, 23 points per game. You're talking about 7 rebounds per game, 8 assists a game. He leads. He's the all-time franchise leader in points, total points with 18,000. He's also the franchise leader in turnovers. So that's, a big thing for points, also a big thing for turnovers. For a guy, 3,000 turnovers compared to the number 2 guy, which is Gary Payton, number 2 on my list, with 2,500. Russell Westbrook playing 11 seasons for Oklahoma City. Gary Payton playing 13, which is crazy to think. Gary Payton's efficiency, even though the player efficiency rating suggests that Russell Westbrook is a little bit higher, I suggest that Gary Payton is number 2. And he's the glove. He really is Mr. Seattle Sonic in a nutshell. Guy averaged 18 points per game, averaged 7 assists per game. This guy was the real deal. And going back to his duo, the relationship between him and Sean Kemp, he was really the glue to that Seattle team to keep Sean Kemp focused on a possible ring. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but luckily for Gary Payton, down the road when he was with Miami, he found that opportunity to get that ring in the 05-06 season as like a backup point guard with the Dwayne Wade, Shaq-led Miami Heat that we talked about last week. And number 1 is Kevin Durant. Man, no arguing that. Obviously, people will consider him a snake and all for leaving Oklahoma City for Robert and I's team, Golden State. But he's the man. I mean, when you average 27.5 a game, when you shoot, 38% in your Oklahoma City career, and Seattle career, did spend a season in Seattle before they left. The guy's a real deal. He won MVP. He's a 9-time all-time. He's a 9-time All NBA selection. You're talking about the majority of his success is All-Star appearances, his All NBA appearances. It came with the Seattle Oklahoma City franchise. Obviously, that Rookie of the Year that he won the 07-08 season, and finally, gotta bring up the per. He's the franchise all-time leader in player efficiency rating, 25. And with that, Robert, what you got?
So what people don't know about this show is we do send our all top 5 beforehand to, either Jason Gehrlein or Nick Rice in this scenario. So Jason has seen both of our top 5, so he knows what he's expecting out of this, but he's expecting a good rebuttal. So Steven, we have the same 5 players on our all-time 5 list.
Okay.
Last week was not the case. We had different players, but I'm in a different order than you this week is the interesting part. We don't have the same 1 through 4. We don't even the number 5. I'm not going to even go with that. Jack Sigma is going to be my number 5. Went back-to-back NBA Finals appearances. Won one when he was 23 years old. Then got traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Number 4. So I switched it, and I went with Russell Westbrook as my number 4 and went to Sean Kemp as my number 3. And here's the main reason why. Russell Westbrook did go to a finals. He was an MVP, went to multiple playoff runs. Unfortunately, when he lost Kevin Durant in the conference finals, he was kind of out of luck there. He lost his partner in crime. One thing that people don't really realize, that 95-96 Seattle Supersonics team was unbelievable, amazing, man, unbelievable run. I have to really give credit. I think Gehrlein would like this reference, but I thought they were more of a lob city. Gary Payton to Sean Kemp was kind of that lob city mentality. They were one of the best defensive teams. They're actually the second best defense in the 95-96 season, and unfortunately was behind the Chicago Bulls. And the Chicago Bulls ended up winning, go against Michael Jordan, and got another championship out of it. If all of you don't remember that, but I got to give credit to Russell Westbrook. He gave it his all. He was very well liked when he left and moved on to the Houston Rockets. No hate when he was left out, and Russell Westbrook did have an amazing career. Now I got to go with Sean Kemp as my number 3. I think he really transformed the big man as being an all-around type of player. Maybe the assists don't tell itself, but points, rebounds, and he just was really athletic. And as Steven said, I think he could have done. I think he just could have been so much better. And I think he, maybe if the Seattle Supersonics did have a great team in 95, 96, it was just at the bad timing of the Chicago Bulls era. Now we also disagree with the number 1, number 2 spot. I go with Kevin Durant as my number 2. Now I know stats wise, I got to give credit to Gary Payton. He is the better shooter, and I think basically like an all around forward. But when he left OKC, man, that was just not a fun sight to see. He got booed every time he touched the ball, but he did get the MVP, went to a finals, and then once the Thunder lost to the Warriors in the conference finals, he left and became a 2-time MVP for that team behind me. So I guess my biggest argument here is why I'm going to pick Gary Payton as my number 1, right?
Mhm.
So I think this is where I'm going to go with this. And I think when he was Defensive Player of the Year, he is the last guard since then to be the NBA Defensive Player of the Year, and the last guard before him, if I am not mistaken, was Michael Jordan in the 1987-88. And he actually led Michael Jordan in that 95-96 finals to the worst field goal percentage, even though he still averaged 27 points a game, and also brought them to a Game 6. And eventually he won his finals with the Miami Heat with the Dwayne Wade and Shaq squad. That a lot of people don't even know that, and he played an important role. But with the Seattle Sonics, yeah, Gary Payton is the man. That's everyone that talks about. But I think in a big accomplishment, he got a lot of respect both ways. He was a big time in this. He was one of the best assist guys for the Seattle Supersonics. He made basically maybe the pre-Lob City with him and Sean Kemp and being a Defensive Player of the Year. It's strange to me that we still have not seen another guard, and we see a lot of two-way guards in this NBA not be getting that credit. Well, shout out to Gary Payton. He's one of the guys that is an offensive and defensive guy. Maybe his first couple of years wasn't really that guy to get it going offensively, but after getting into his 4th season, he turned it around. So that's why I'm going to go Gary Payton, number 1.
I'd like to say here's some interesting parallels between Gary Payton and KD. They both made the finals with the franchise they were drafted with. They both left to go to a California team, and they both also went to the East Coast. And they both and KD is actually chasing chasing Payton right now because Gary Payton made the finals with 3 different teams. KD only did it with 2. So now he's trying to make the finals in the East Coast. Just a little sports trivia for you.
Oh, my rebuttal, and Robert, you'll have one more rebuttal as well before we leave the decision up to Dr. J. I'm going to kind of nitpick here at the best seasons between our top 4. We will have Sean Kemp and Gary Payton in the 95-96 season, in which they lost to the Bulls in the finals, against Westbrook and Durant in the 2015-2016 season, in which they lost to the Warriors, bottling a 3-1 series lead. I'm going to look exclusively at the regular season, not the postseason, just the regular season, to see the efficiency that they brought. In that 95-96 season, Sean Kemp had a higher player efficiency rating than Gary Payton, 22.6. And also, you're talking about more, I would say not more, I would say less help. It was those 2 guys in that 95-96 season. Detlef Schrempf, he was okay. He was a solid guy down low, a compliment to Sean Kemp. But he's definitely not better than in the 2015-2016 season when you have Enes Kanter. So uh, that's why, I mean, when you talk about the number 2 guy on the 2015-2016 season, you talk about Westbrook, and then number 1, you talk about Kevin Durant. Russell Westbrook's per is 27.6. It's just more dynamic than what Sean Kemp offered. He was number 1 that season. Russell Westbrook offered more to the table that was really needed from the team, but unfortunately they didn't get the job done. And you can say the same case for the 95-96 team. And then for Kevin Durant to be number 1, I mean, we're talking about 2 different styles of play, 2 completely different players when we talk about Durant and Payton. But I think if you take Durant out of the 2015-2016 team, or just in general, you take Durant off of the Oklahoma City Seattle franchise, I genuinely do not think that we see the success, remotely any success, to what we've actually seen from Oklahoma City from 2011, 2012, up to the point where KD left Oklahoma City. Because look at what Russell Westbrook did in his 2-3 seasons as the main guy in Oklahoma City. It was the one-man show, but that doesn't equate to playoff success. I think that if Sean Kemp were to be off that Seattle team, there's a chance that I think Seattle would have been fine. And that's why I had Russell Westbrook above Sean Kemp in my top 5.
Okay, I guess with my rebuttal here, I'm just going to say that Gary Payton was like one of the best defenders against Michael Jordan. That's something that will always be remembered in that sense, and pushed them to a game 6. I know they didn't push them to a game 7, but I got to give credit to that 95-96 team with Sean Kemp and Gary Payton, because that was probably their best shot at winning a finals. If you look when they went to the Miami Heat, yeah, KD, Russell Westbrook, you have a young James Harden that wasn't starting. He was a 6th man. Didn't get as much time, but I feel like if you didn't have Gary Payton and that Seattle Supersonics team, I don't think they would have been like first round out. I mean, that was the season before too. They lost to the Lakers in the 94-95 season in the first round. But I don't know. I feel like if you just don't, I mean, yeah, we can make the argument Kevin Durant not being on that team with Russell Westbrook. Yeah, it's not good. It's not that it's just the duos. Like the Miami Heat had the big 3, and OKC's big 3 was really like the Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant. But I think Gary Payton's just the face of the Seattle Supersonics. And, I think OKC fans are still not over the fact that Kevin Durant still has left the franchise to go chase rings. So, I mean, Gary Payton did go win one with Miami. Not saying that, but I guess like at least he didn't get booed, and OKC is not over this. So I'm gonna go Gary Payton as my number 1 guy. Just way more liked. I love his style of game, but yeah, we're talking about 2 different styles of play. But I think that defensive player of the year and being the only guard since then, I think that's got to be the icing on the cake, as being number 1. All right, Jason, your decision, bro. It's up to you.
Should I give my reasoning first, or should I name the winner first?
You can go either way, my guy. It's up to you.
Okay. So my winner is definitely Steven, for the fact that, yes, Russell Westbrook in our minds is a lot more, you think of him as a little bit more talented. However, Gary Payton left it all out on the court every single time for the Supersonics, and he is what people, up until they moved to the Thunder, that's who you thought of when you thought about Supersonics. You thought of the glove. You thought of Gary Payton coming out, hounding guys for the entire 94 feet, and just creating every game, be it a defensive nightmare, and also being able to have an offensive game. Westbrook is a great player, and we're not going to talk about anything past Thunder, but he was very resilient during those KD-less years. But that's what made the list for me. That's what gave it to me. Why I wanted Steven to win is because he appreciated Gary Payton, and he realizes the importance of Gary Payton to the franchise. Also, Kevin Durant's like one of the best players in the last 20, 30 years, and for him to come to be drafted as a Thunder and to be able to contribute all that to that franchise and give him a shot and just be exceptional, it's unbeatable.
I'll take the dub, and I appreciate it, Jason. This is usually the moment in time, like on what's the show? It's an ESPN show in which Around the Horn,
Yeah.
that I get my little 20 seconds of fame. We're on to Cincinnati. That's my expression. We're just on to the next top five. I make sure it's very competitive. Robert and I have known each other for so long, and we're like brothers, and we just want to keep things pretty competitive. And a win for me is just going to fuel him even more to deliver next week on a better argument. So I look forward to that, and I look forward to it every week. But Robert, the Deits, you can unmute yourself. Since I won the top five, I'd be happy to get things going on hot and cold here on the West Coast Heat Check. I'll start with just my hot team. I think we can just go all around. Do the hot team first. My hot team is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. Mentioned this in my first episode that I think that they're going to be the number one team out of the Eastern Conference at the end of the season. And I stand firm with that. And they started the season slow. They're still trying to work around the fact that they don't have Eric Bledsoe, who was a real defensive standout for them over the last couple of years, a real true complement to what Giannis and Chris Middleton offer as the core players of that team. Winners of 5 in a row. They need to improve a little bit better on the road, but 9-2 at home, you stick with that. You're only a game and a half out of that number one spot below the 76ers. I think that's a real opening for them to get to that number one spot. And hopefully, in my personal opinion, I can see them making a deep run in a finals appearance, possibly against one of the LA teams. But we'll get to that as we get closer and closer to seeing a clear playoff picture.
Okay. Can I go next?
Absolutely.
All right. So my hot team of the week. Listen, I've been waiting literal years to say this team's name. It might be in your you might be knowing that the name in your head right now. It is the capital of California, the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings have been garbage for the better half of my entire life, and I am 25 years old. I am 25 years old. The last time the Sacramento Kings were good, I was 11 years old. Okay, so 14 years. But let's get enough of the garbage intro. Let me tell you why they're the hottest team right now. Going 7-3, being at 500. This Sacramento Kings team has risen from the ashes like a phoenix. De'Aaron Fox is playing exceptional, and he's leading that team. They're not the greatest built team in the world, but the pieces that they have been able to acquire and to be able to, frankly, to be able to keep them and have them be coachable and have them be efficient is great. And, the best draft pick in a while for them, Tyrese Halliburton, playing great, just being an excellent piece off the bench. Guys like Whiteside, they're not really, utilizing that well, but I mean, in Sacramento, it's got to feel good right now.
So Jason actually took the same team I'm going to pick, but I have to give him credit. He did a great job. Points per game, they're 11th right now, almost 114, and top 10 in assists, so they are passing that ball mighty fine right now.
Mm-hmm.
De'Aaron Fox, I think we finally saw him just unload, and that's what the Kings wanted. They want this young talent to develop. They're seeing a healthy Marvin Bagley III come out finally after all these injury problems, and a lot of people thought he was going to be a bust. He's so far played all 24 games. Rashawn Holmes has also started every game, missed one, and the rookie Halliburton has taken over. By the way, I love their rookie. Burns been doing great, and 12 points a game. LaMelo Ball is number 1 right now, but Tyrese Halliburton is top 3 right now for the rookie ratings, and he is hitting the charts. Harrison Barnes on that consistent, 16 points, but I think when you can give it to De'Aaron Fox and you let him have his own show, that's a great thing. I want to see Marvin Bagley, though, do more on this hot team. I know he's progressing. This is a healthy season. Don't jinx it. Knock on wood. Let's see this team go far. Richard Jefferson did say at the beginning of this season this was the worst starting 5, and he's getting proven wrong right now because this team is hot and ready to go. All right, now we go on to our cold team. Steven, what do you got?
The cold team that I have for this episode is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that I actually had as my hot team, I believe, the very first the first or the second episode. I believe it was the second episode that I said they're the hot team. They're winners of 5 in a row. They're really good defensively in terms of opponents' points per game. They're 4-1 on the road at that point in the season. Well, they're 6-3 on the road, but their home record is 4-7. I mean, it's just what I'm seeing out of them is a little unfortunate, I would say. I think that they could be doing a lot better. I think that with John Morant in his second season, I think that there needs to be the next step. And you have some talent around John Morant, but it's just been way too inconsistent so far this season, and that's why they're on my whole team at the moment. Jason, who's your cold team?
I feel like a kid in the candy shop right now because there's just a lot of stinky trash that needs to be taken out in the NBA right now. But if I had to choose an unfortunate victim, and not to add insult to injury, but it's got to be the Indiana Pacers. I don't ask for a lot. All right, I really do not ask a lot from our neighbors to the north. But good Lord, man, they're currently on a 4-game losing streak. They've been awful at home. They've been okay on the road, and they're expecting to be a playoff team. They are still the 6th. But come on, this team is not going to be the same, especially with losing Oladipo and still waiting for Warren to come back from injury. This team knows what they are. They know that they're good for a couple of games over 500 and give their fans and the NBA fans a entertaining playoff series, possibly going to 6 or 7 games. But this is despicable. They need to pick it up. They're colder than a TV dinner I've left in the back of my fridge for 6 months.
You are something else, Gehrlein, but it's good to have you. He actually is one of my former roommates that we used to be at sports broadcasting camp. I met alongside Nick Rice, just a little background, but if I got to go with the cold team right now, it's a team with, I believe, too many center problems. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Ever since they got Allen, Drummond, JaVale McGee, man, you got like a whole squad of them out there. This isn't becoming a 3-point team anymore. It's becoming just go inside and drive type of team. I'm not seeing a lot of 3-point shooting. I just pulled up their game, and they did lose tonight. They lost to the Denver Nuggets 133-95. Drummond only scored 4 points, and he's supposed to be the guy that's a double-double machine right now. Jared Allen had 10 rebounds, 18 points, and they're on the teeter-totter. Which one of them is going to be leaving Cleveland? Which one's going to get traded? I mostly am going to see that Drummond may be the guy that goes out and Cleveland goes young, but it's Cleveland Cavaliers, I think, have made some not great trade decisions, but they got Prince and Allen now as their 2 main guys. Kevin Love still not being around. I don't know what Cleveland's going to do at this point, but on a 5-game losing streak, they need to figure something out and something fast, and they need shooters. But we're going to go to our now 2 hot players. Steven, who do you got as your 2 hot guys right now?
2 hot players. I'm going to go with Joel Embiid. He's been averaging 26 and 13 over the last 4 games. I mean, his performance so far this season is the real reason why the Sixers are still in first place in the Eastern Conference. And then my second hot player is DeAndre Ayton. I think the Suns have always been the team that they just need a couple pieces that support Devin Booker, and they can become a decent team. And they have really become that so far this season. Right now, they're the number 4 seed at 14-9. I mean, when you have Devin Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, um, you're gonna be successful. And DeAndre Ayton's averaging 15 and 14.7 rebounds per game. Just some really, really solid numbers out of really what you want out of your center. So those are my two hot players. And then also let's do our cold players as well, hot and cold. Our cold players, I'm going to go with Duncan Robinson of the Miami Heat. This guy was an NBA Finals player to watch. And so far this year, we haven't really seen a replication of last year's numbers. We've seen a dip in points, we've seen a dip in field goal percentage, a dip in three-point percentage, a dip in free throw percentage as well. So hopefully he can pick it back up. I know that Miami has been struggling with the COVID cases so far this year, but I mean, they're out of the playoff picture right now. They're 10-14. They really need to get things going if they want to make a playoff push. My second guy is Eric Bledsoe, a guy that I mentioned that he was a real compliment to that Bucks team over the last couple of years with Giannis, Chris Middleton. Again, we're seeing dips in points, dips in free throw percentage, dips in field goal percentage. And this is with the New Orleans team that, he's supposed to be another compliment, but this time to Zion, a younger player, still kind of unproven. Even though he's playing well, it's still a little unproven and with a rebuilding franchise. So again, I think Eric Bledsoe is going to be only as good as the team does, as the team is. And, so far we haven't really seen both really equate to some consistent success this season.
All right, I did have a hot player, but I think I might save him for Deiters over there because I think he might know who I might say, a Bay Area dude. So I'm gonna choose another Bay Area dude and another person. So my first person, De'Aaron Fox. Dude, the guy is great. He's really finally living up to his potential. In the last 5 games, he is shooting above 50%. He has a 31.6 points per game. I like that. I like that a lot. He's been playing good. He's averaging 9 assists per game. So that means he's sharing the ball, not just hogging it to himself. That, and you can attribute the Kings' success to him. The other dude is a bad man from the Windy City, Zach LaVine. Let me tell you, this guy, again, shooting above 50%, 33.3 points per game, keeping down the turnovers, getting a steal here and there, getting 6 assists per game. If Chicago wants to succeed, hypothetically, for the sake of argument, whatever you wanted, they're going to need Zach LaVine to perform. So it's good that he's getting up there. Maybe some other people can on that team can help boost and rise that team to its full potential. Now, our cold players of the week. Garrett Temple. When I say that you're bringing down the vibe, I mean it. He is shooting almost less than 16% per game. He's 44. He's playing 25 minutes. He's barely averaging more than 4 points a game, and his 3-point percentage is 11. No thanks. Stay away from the 3-point line and maybe try to go over some fundamentals. And you hate to have to hate on a legend, but Andre Iguodala, 3.2 points per game. He hasn't been the greatest. He's keeping the turnovers down a little bit, but his contributions, especially for someone who's taking up 22 points per game, it's just not going to cut it. You got to do a lot better than 35% from the field. You just have to.
Great picks. Gehrlein, you actually took one of my hot guys, but I'm going to change it because I do want to pick this guy, and I didn't get to talk to him much about last week. I know we're getting closer down to the end of the show, but Stephen Curry, he's been on fire. We haven't seen him average almost 30 points since 2015, 2016 season. It's kind of crazy what he's been doing. He's almost been putting up 20 shots a game, and I think he's just making this team a lot better. He's getting Kelly Oubre and Wiggins more involved. A lot of people believe Oubre is just kind of just a washed up type of guy. Well, I think Stephen Curry is bringing this Warriors team back. They recently beat the Spurs and split on 1-1, so they're 13-12. They're that interesting, even 500 balanced team, but Stephen Curry is being that MVP right now for them. And I gotta say, this is my another hot player, really quick. Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo Ball, Rookie of the Year. The man has just been balling. He's been better, a lot better than his brother Lonzo Ball. Is playing all 25 games. Has actually started 5 games this season, averaging almost 15 points a game, six assists, and almost 6 rebounds per contest. Shout out to LaMelo Ball. He's proven a lot of haters wrong, and I think he's going to be Rookie of the Year. He's just leading all the rookies in points, rebounds, assists, everything you can name up. My Cole players, Atlanta Hawks. Gallinari is one guy I believe is just he's got to go. They signed him for way too much money. He hasn't been the guy I think the Atlanta Hawks has expected him to be, but they are saying that he could be a trade piece to the Pelicans, and JJ Redick might be in the package to go to the Atlanta Hawks. I would love to see something like that. The Gallinari is just hitting a lot of season lows. And my last one, I got to go with the vet too here. For Gehrlein, I got to go with Marc Gasol for the LA Lakers. I think the man's just not what he used to be. I mean, he's playing. I guess he's playing his role. He started all 25 games, but I think I like JaVale McGee better with JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard with the LA Lakers. I think the Lakers lost a lot at that center position, giving up Howard and JaVale McGee and going in all in for a Marc Gasol with the trade from Toronto. So I think Marc Gasol just he's hitting season. This is his like season lows of lows, and he's only 36. I mean, I would accept him to maybe at least get 5, 6, maybe 7 points a game. So those are my 2 Cole players. But we are running out of time here on the West Coast Heat Check. I want to give a shout out to my roommate Manny Argueta for the new sounds that are actually in the intro and the closing out of our show. He's putting in new beats. And then shout out to the boy that Steve and I know, James Spray, for the logo for the West Coast Heat Check as well. You can follow both of them on Instagram for Manny Sounds. And then for James Spray, it's James Ink or Spray Ink Photography for the Instagram. Well, thank you so much, Dr. J. It was nice having you on. We hope to have
Thank
you
you for
on in
having
the
me on.
future. Steven, or aka the Big Skinny, aka Steven Hughes. Congratulations on your 3rd dub against me. I want to come back next week and get a big win, but we'll see what happens. And Nick Rice will be joining us for the next week's show. From the West Coast T-Check, I'm the Deits. We got Dr. J and we got the Big Skinny. Thank you so much, and tune in next Thursday. Have a great night.
Awesome.